At 0730 hours on September 19, 1944, Staff Sergeant Lafayette Poole stood beside his Sherman tank at a staging area near Aachen, Germany, watching his crew prepare for what would become his final mission. The morning air was cold, carrying the smell of diesel fuel and damp earth. Around Poole, dozens of other Sherman tanks sat in formation, their crews running through pre-combat checks. Engines coughed to life one by one, filling the staging area with mechanical thunder. The ground trembled under 33-ton steel machines preparing for battle. Poole was 25 years old, 81 days in combat, 12 confirmed tank kills. The German defenders had fortified the Siegfried Line with Panthers, Tigers, and hidden anti-tank guns. Poole's unit would be pushing straight into them. Intelligence reports estimated at least 2 Panther companies defending the approaches to Münsterbusch. Poole had been commanding Sherman tanks for 3 months. He knew the tank inside and out. Medium tank, 33 tons fully loaded, 5-man crew, powered by a Continental R975 radial engine, producing 350 horsepower. The M4A1 model with the 76mm gun. Maximum speed of 30 miles per hour on roads, 20 across country. The Sherman had one fatal problem that was killing American tank crews every day. It couldn't penetrate a Panther or Tiger from the front. The Panther weighed 45 tons, mounted a 75mm high-velocity cannon that could penetrate a Sherman's armor at 2,000 yards. Its frontal armor was 80mm thick, sloped at 55 degrees. A Sherman's 76mm gun needed to be within 300 yards to penetrate a Panther's side armor. The Tiger was even worse. 56 tons, 88mm gun, frontal armor up to 120mm thick. A Tiger could destroy a Sherman from 2,500 yards. A. Sherman couldn't penetrate a Tiger's front armor at any practical combat range. American doctrine said Sherman crews should never engage German heavy armor head-on. Use speed, use numbers, flank them, hit the sides and rear. The 3rd Armoured Division had lost heavy numbers of tanks in Normandy. Most were destroyed by German tanks that outranged them. Poole had watched tank commanders die following conventional tactics. The doctrine assumed Sherman crews would have time to maneuver, space to flank, support from artillery. In reality, combat was faster, closer, more chaotic. German crews exploited every hesitation. Poole developed a different approach. He drilled his crew constantly. Driver drills, gunner drills, loader drills. He timed everything. How fast could his driver execute a 90-degree turn at full speed? How fast could his gunner acquire a target and fire? How fast could his loader chamber a round after firing? He pushed them until every action was instinctive. His driver was Corporal Wilbert Richards, 24 years old, from Cumberland, Maryland. Poole called him Baby, though others knew him as Red for his red hair. Richards was 5'4", had grown up working on farm equipment. He could feel when the transmission was about to slip, when the tracks were wearing unevenly. He drove with his hatch open always. His bow gunner was Private First Class Bert Close, 17 years old, from Portland, Oregon. Poole called him Schoolboy. Close wore wire-rimmed glasses and had lied about his age to enlist. He was skilled with the .30 caliber bow machine gun and never panicked under fire. His gunner was Corporal Willis Oller, 29 years old, from Morrisonville, Illinois. Poole called him Groundhog because of the permanent marks around his eyes from the gunsight cushion. Oller had worked as a machinist before the war. He had an instinct for target acquisition that Poole had never seen in another gunner. His loader was Technician 5th grade, Delbert Boggs, 22 years old, from Lancaster, Ohio. Poole called him Jailbird. Boggs had been given a choice by a judge back home: army or prison on a manslaughter charge. He chose the army. Boggs could chamber a 76mm round in 4 seconds flat. Poole's unit was Company 1, 32nd Armoured Regiment, 3rd Armoured Division. The division had sailed for Europe on September 5, 1943, arriving in England on September 15th. They trained near Liverpool for 9 months before entering combat on June 29, 1944, at Villiers-Fossard in Normandy. Poole's first Sherman was destroyed that same day by a Panzerfaust. His crew survived and received a replacement tank, which they named In the Mood after the Glenn Miller song. This second tank would be destroyed on August 17th by friendly fire when an American P-38 Lightning mistook it for German armour. Again, the crew survived and received their third Sherman, also named In the Mood. Between June 29th and September 19th, Poole's crew had become the most effective tank hunters in the European theatre. Their success came from aggressive tactics that violated conventional doctrine. When they spotted a target, Oller would fire immediately without waiting for perfect range. While the enemy reacted, Richards would drive straight at them, closing distance, changing angles. They kept firing and moving until the target was destroyed. On June 30th, 1944, Poole's crew engaged their first Panther near Villiers-Fossard. The German tank was hull down behind a hedge, 800 yards away. Most commanders would have called for artillery. Poole didn't hesitate. He ordered Oller to fire. The first round missed low. The Panther's turret traversed toward them. Poole ordered Richards to drive straight at the threat instead of reversing. At 600 yards, Oller fired again. The round bounced off the Panther's front armour. The Panther fired back, missing by 3 feet. Richards kept driving forward. At 400 yards, the Panther fired again. The round hit Poole's Sherman but didn't penetrate. At 300 yards, Richards swung the tank into a slide, presenting the gun to the Panther's exposed side. Oller fired the moment the gun aligned. The 76mm round punched through the side armour. The Panther's turret lifted from internal pressure as ammunition detonated inside. They immediately engaged 2 Panzer IVs that tried to flank them. Oller destroyed both in less than 2 minutes. 3 kills in 4 minutes using tactics that doctrine said were suicidal. Poole's methods spread through the regiment. His aggressive approach, close quarters fighting, constant movement, and immediate firing without perfect positioning, these tactics kept crews alive against superior German armour. By August, dozens of tank crews in the 3rd Armoured Division were using similar methods. The Germans noticed the change. After-action reports from panzer units mentioned that American Sherman crews were fighting more aggressively, closing distance despite taking hits, forcing engagements at ranges where German armour advantages were reduced. Tactics that had worked for months were failing. Shermans that should have retreated were advancing under fire. Poole's combat record grew steadily. On July 21st, near St. Lo, he destroyed 3 German tanks and 15 half-tracks in a single engagement. On August 2nd, near Mortain, his crew knocked out 2 Panthers that had ambushed his column. On August 29th, Poole led an attack that destroyed multiple German positions, earning him the Distinguished Service Cross. By early September, Poole had destroyed 12 tanks and 246 other armoured vehicles. His crew had killed an estimated 1,000 German soldiers and captured 250 prisoners. They had participated in 21 major offensive operations without losing a single crew member. Poole's battalion commander was Lieutenant Colonel Walter Richardson, a fellow Texan who had known Poole since training at Camp Polk, Louisiana. Richardson recognized Poole's exceptional abilities and often assigned him to lead columns despite Poole being a sergeant rather than an officer. Poole had refused promotion to maintain direct command of his tank. On September 17th, orders arrived for Poole and his crew to rotate back to the United States for a war bond tour. After 81 days of continuous combat, they would return home to help raise money for the war effort. The tour was scheduled to begin in early October. But first, they had one more mission. On September 19th, Poole's unit was assigned to penetrate the Siegfried Line near Münsterbusch, Germany. Richardson specifically ordered Poole not to take point position that day. He wanted Poole's crew to survive their last mission. Poole acknowledged the order. In the Mood would serve as a flank guard instead of spearhead. The attack began at 07:30. The advance went smoothly for 20 minutes. Then everything went wrong. Poole's regular loader, Del Boggs, had been sent to the rear for a medical check in preparation for the rotation home. His replacement was Private First Class Paul Kenneth King, 20 years old, from Anderson County, Tennessee. King was inexperienced and hadn't trained with the crew. Poole spotted a hidden anti-tank position near a damaged house. He identified it as an 88mm gun, one of the deadliest German weapons. He called out the target. Oller reported ready to fire. Poole gave the command. King tried to chamber a round but fumbled it. The round jammed in the breech. Oller couldn't fire. Poole saw the German gun crew elevating their weapon. He shouted for Richards to reverse. The Sherman started backing up. Too late. The 88 fired. The round hit in the Moods turret at 300 yards. The armor-piercing shell punched through, passed between Poole and Oller, and detonated inside. Poole was blown out of the commander's hatch by the blast. He hit the ground 15 feet from the tank, his right leg nearly severed by shrapnel. He grabbed a morphine syringe from his first aid pouch and injected himself. The pain was overwhelming. He tried to cut away the destroyed portion of his leg with his pocket knife. Medics reached him within minutes. They stopped him from completing the amputation, applied tourniquets, gave him more morphine. The crew pulled Richards and Close from the burning Sherman. Both survived with minor injuries. Oller was critically wounded with shrapnel through his left leg. King was killed instantly. Poole was evacuated to a field hospital where doctors amputated his right leg 8 inches above the knee. Oller spent 14 months in hospitals, underwent 6 surgeries, and was discharged on February 15, 1946, with a permanent leg brace. Richards and Close continued with the 3rd Armored Division and survived the war. Lafayette Green Poole was born on July 23, 1919, in Odom, Texas. He had a twin brother named John Thomas, who served in the Navy during the war. Poole graduated from high school in Taft, Texas, in 1938. He attended Texas College of Arts and Industries for 1 year, studying engineering. Before the war, Poole was an accomplished amateur boxer. He won the sectional 165-pound crown in New Orleans and competed in Golden Gloves tournaments. During training in England, he had an exhibition match with heavyweight champion Joe Louis. Poole won all 41 matches he fought in the Army. Poole enlisted on June 14, 1941. He trained with the 3rd Armored Division at Camp Polk, Louisiana, and deployed to England in September 1943. His combat career lasted exactly 81 days, from June 29 to September 19, 1944. Poole received the Distinguished Service Cross, the Legion of Merit, the Silver Star, the Purple Heart, the Belgian Fourragère, and the French Legion of Honor. He was twice nominated for the Medal of Honor. The first nomination's paperwork was reportedly lost. The second was denied because authorities determined his success was a crew effort rather than individual action. After the war, Poole was discharged in June 1946. He returned to Texas and opened a filling station in Sinton. He struggled to adjust to civilian life. In July 1948, he was allowed to re-enlist as one of 7 amputees recalled for their technical skills. He served as an automotive instructor with the 3rd Armored Division at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Poole retired on September 19, 1960, exactly 16 years after being wounded, as Chief Warrant Officer 2 from Fort Sam Houston, Texas. He died in his sleep on May 30, 1991, at age 71. He was buried in Texas. In 1993, 2 years after his death, the Armored Force School at Fort Knox named a tank driver training simulator hall in Poole's honor. The dedication plaque read Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. Poole, American Tank Ace, 258 enemy vehicles destroyed, 81 days in combat. The facility was later moved when the Armor School relocated to Fort Benning, now Fort Moore, Georgia, in 2010. Poole's legacy extends beyond his combat record. His aggressive tactics, developed through experience rather than doctrine, influenced how American tank crews fought. His willingness to close with superior enemy armor, to attack rather than retreat, to maintain constant fire and movement, these methods saved American lives. His crew members remembered him differently. Richards said Poole always put the crew first, drilling them constantly but ensuring they had the best equipment and supplies available. Close recalled that Poole treated him like an adult despite being only 17, never talking down to him. Oller credited Poole with keeping them alive through 3 months of brutal combat. Boggs, who missed the final battle, spent decades wondering if his presence might have changed the outcome. Military historians have noted that Poole achieved the highest tank kill record of any American in World War II, despite fighting for less than 3 months. His 12 confirmed tank kills and 258 total vehicles destroyed remain unmatched. He accomplished this using standard Sherman tanks that were mechanically inferior to German armor. What made Poole exceptional wasn't superhuman ability or special equipment. He simply refused to accept that American crews had to die because German tanks were better. He developed tactics that maximized the Sherman's strengths, speed, and maneuverability while minimizing its weaknesses. He trained his crew to function as a single organism, each member knowing exactly what the others would do. Poole never wrote about his experiences. He rarely spoke about the war after returning home. When asked about his success, he credited his crew. When asked about his injuries, he changed the subject. He was a warrior who found his purpose in combat and struggled to find meaning afterward. The Sherman tank evolved during the war. Later models received improved armor and guns. The M26 Pershing heavy tank arrived in early 1945 with a 90mm gun that could match German armor. But in the summer of 1944, American crews had to fight with what they had. Men like Poole found ways to win anyway. Combat creates its own mathematics. Statistics say a Sherman couldn't defeat a Panther in frontal engagement. Poole proved statistics wrong 12 times. Doctrine said to avoid close combat with German heavy tanks. Poole charged them anyway and lived while others who followed doctrine died. War rewards, aggression and punishes. Hesitation. Poole understood this instinctively. His story demonstrates how innovation happens in combat, not through committees or studies, but through individuals who face problems directly and find solutions. Poole's tactics weren't approved by high command or taught in training schools. They emerged from necessity, spread through example, and saved lives through application. Today, Poole's name appears in military histories and tank warfare studies. The 3rd Armored Division Association maintains records of his achievements. Veterans who served with him share stories at reunions, but these remembrances capture only fragments of who he was. Lafayette Poole was a young man from Texas who became the best tank killer America produced in World War II. He fought for 81 days, destroyed 258 enemy vehicles, and lost his leg, ensuring his crew survived their final battle. He spent the rest of his life living quietly, working with machines, rarely discussing what he'd done. That's how heroes actually are. Not larger-than-life figures from Hollywood, but regular people who do extraordinary things when circumstances demand it. Poole didn't fight for glory or medals. He fought to keep his crew alive and complete the mission. Everything else was secondary. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like this video. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to stay connected with these untold histories. Each one matters. Each one deserves to be remembered. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Our community spans from Texas to Taiwan. From veterans to history enthusiasts, you're part of something special here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for keeping these stories alive.